said Celeste. I'm not Carolyn Lukensmeyer, in case you were wondering. Carolyn, her plane was canceled in D.C., and so I'm standing in for Carolyn, who is the Executive Director of the National Institute for Civil Discourse. And I think a number of you have met Carolyn in that capacity that she has, and I am the Director of State Programs for the National Institute for Civil Discourse. And just by way of brief history, in 2011, when Gabby Giffords was shot, the folks in her district in Tucson said, we've got to do something that makes something positive out of that tragedy, and they determined one of the ways was to create this National Institute. That Gabby Giffords was someone who worked well across the aisle, both when she was in the state legislature as well as when she was in Congress. And so they set up the National Institute for Civil Discourse at the University of Arizona. And since that time, the Institute's been involved in a variety of ways at trying to bring civil discourse to the political arena. We've actually held two events as the Institute here in the State House. One in October, when we brought together folks from elected officials and the public and the media to talk about each one of those institutions' roles in civil discourse, if you will. And out of that came another meeting, the Ohio Civility Consortium, for which we're really pleased that we had that meeting in March. And a number of people from around the state came for that meeting to talk about what could be done. So the fact that we're here today is really driven by what's happened since then. The discourse at the presidential level has gotten worse. The language, the responses, the incivil attitudes have all increased. And clearly, Ohio is in the heart of it all, being a swing state for 2016. So our goal was to have a discussion with many of the folks who've been involved in this from the beginning, and to let you all know that we are kicking off this campaign here in Ohio called, you can see it, Revive Civility, Our Democracy Depends on It. This has been kicked off online and in DC, and we've had a fabulous response. And if folks go to our website, nicd.arizona.edu/revive civility, you'll find information that drives you to how we hope that folks will be participating. And our goal is to offer those people who say, what can we do about it? To not just shrug their shoulders and say, you know, the negative ads are going to go on, people are going to be doing this, those negative ads work. We want to provide some tools to those folks to make it work. So we've kicked off this campaign, and on that website will be information for individuals to hold candidates and elected officials accountable, to hold themselves and other citizens accountable, and to hold the media accountable. And so we hope that today's presentation and discussion with the folks who are here will help kick off that exercise. So before I introduce the folks who are going to participate, I want to recognize a couple of my former colleagues who are here, who I greatly appreciate the fact that they've joined us and have been involved in the program that I'm responsible for called Next Generation, which works with state representatives around the country. And that's former Representative Jerry Stebleton, former Representative Michael Stinziano, who's now City Councilman here in Columbus. Appreciate your being here. So let me begin by handing it off to former Congressman Zack, who did participate in one of our events and has a very strong feeling and emotional support for this cause. And Zack, we appreciate your being here.
Thank you, Ted, for the good work that you're doing, and certainly the work of the National Institute of Civil Discourse, and the challenges that it is attempting to take. I served in Congress for 4 years, from 2006 through 2010. Actually, Ted mentioned Gabby Giffords, who was a classmate of mine in the 2006 election, is and was just a delightful, wonderful person, and represents, I think, the absolute extreme in terms of the lack of civility and what seems to be happening in the political process in this country. When I was in Congress, we dealt with, obviously, some significant issues, healthcare, climate change, the war in Iraq. And at that time, it was extremely difficult to engage in thoughtful deliberations, given the polarity, polarization that seems to have occurred. That inability to debate issues has been exacerbated in the last 6 years. Things like name-calling, the utter politicization of the process or issues, pandering to basal instincts and tearing one another down, both parties and individuals. It's all led to a government where dysfunction and gridlock have become the new norm, and that leads to problems, obviously, and we're seeing that. Today, we have these profound issues that we need to deal with as a nation, whether it's terrorism and developing smart and effective foreign policy, dealing with the specter of global warming, participation in the global economy in a way that promotes both a strong business environment and treats workers fairly. All these challenges we must confront in order to remain great as a nation, yet this dysfunctional status prohibits us from effectively dealing with them. And there's another problem associated with this dysfunction, and we're seeing that, I think, in the presidential manifestations of the presidential race today. And that is a genuine and legitimate loss of confidence among the people of this country in the democratic process. That represents, in my opinion, a very dangerous trend. So I think it's time for all of us, Democrats and Republicans, the media, and individuals, to make a conscious effort to stop allowing rigid ideological allegiance to get in the way of good governance, stop with the name-calling, the vicious attack ads, and the debasement of one another, and stop putting political wins above the creation of sound and effective policy, and to start listening to one another and to try to form an understanding of where we're all coming from. I support the Institute's call to revive civility at every level. Again, I think that shows itself in how we talk to our neighbors, how we hold politicians accountable. As for candidates and elected officials, it means treating one another with respect. And as for the media, it means sticking with the facts, calling out incivility and political commentary, and holding elected officials and candidates accountable. Incivility has brought our system to a screeching halt. We have the power to fix it. I hope all Ohioans will visit nicd.arizona.edu, sign the standards of conduct, and urge elected officials to uphold them. In the end, if politicians refuse to comport with common standards of decency, then it's going to be up to the citizens across this country to demand it, to revive civility, and to move our country forward. And I do want to just again thank Ted and the Institute, and I certainly want to commend Denise and Frank, as well as Michael, who are all active in their political careers and have taken very strong stances on this issue. And having been involved in this process in the past, I can tell you that's not easy to do. And so I think all three of them have demonstrated their commitment to civility, not just simply with their words, but also with their actions. And we'd certainly like to thank Doug, who was here with the Journal, and thank the Journal for its progressive and thoughtful approach to this process. With that, I'll turn the dais back over to Ted.